Now let's create a hotkey so we don't have to keep coming up here every time we want to reload the page. So let's go to the JavaScript, and in the docReady function at the end, let's create another function. The key up event will fire whenever a key is pressed and released. Okay, so I'm going to add a parameter to this function. Just put E in there. So what I want to do is find out the property of this event, a key up event. So what I'm going to do is alert e.key. I'm going to save it. Back to the browser. So I'm going to press the escape key, and I get escape with a capital letter, capital E. I'm going to press the R key, so I see that R with a small letter. So I want to make a note. Okay, so the E.key for the escape key is escape with a capital E. For the R key, it is R. So I only want to do something when I press the escape key. So I need a conditional statement for that. The conditional statement requires parentheses. That's where we put the condition. Outside the parentheses and in brackets, we can put the block of code that we will run if the condition is true. Okay, so what I'm going to do in the condition, I'm going to say e.key is equal to, strictly equals to, escape with a capital E. If that is true, what I want to do is I want to reload the page. But first of all, I want to check to see if what I'm doing is right. So again, I'm going to alert. It's good. Okay, so what's going to happen if I press the escape key? I'm going to alert good. If I press any other key, nothing's going to happen. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to refresh. Now I'm going to press the escape key, and we get good. But I'm going to press another key, any other key, R, nothing happens. So what we can do is put the JavaScript command right here that will run only if we press the escape key. So to reload the page, the command is location.reload. It's a function, so we need parentheses. Okay, so only when we press the escape key will the page reload. So now I have to reload it first to implement that new code. Okay, so now watch up in the corner. I press the escape key, and you see that little movement. I press any other key, and nothing happens. Now, if we want, we could add conditions to this conditional clause, such that we could say, or e.key equals. Okay, so this double bar symbol, that means or. So let's test this out. We'll save it. Go back to the browser. I'm going to press the escape key first. Now I'm going to press the R key. And it seems to be working just the same. Okay, so let's go back to the code, and I want to try what it would happen if I made this a capital R. I'm going to save that again. Go back here. I'm going to press the escape key. I know that's going to refresh the page. I'm going to press the R key again, and nothing happens. But if I press Shift R, we see the page refresh, because Shift R is like pressing the capital R. When I press the R key, you see the button with the capital R in it, but that button is because of my screen recorder. It's not actually what's being pressed. Okay, now let's try something else. Press the escape key and hold it down. Don't release it. And nothing's happening. Now release it. You see, we have to press it down and let it come up. So let's make a comment. Okay, so the key up event fires only when the key is pressed down and then released up. That's what the key up means. Let's try something else. try key down. Okay, save that. So now press the escape key but hold it down. You see what's happening now? It keeps refreshing. Okay, the key down event fires as long as the key is pressed. So I'm going to leave a comment right there. Okay, and what we need, we're going to use the key down event later, but for now we need the key up event. And okay, in this video we learned about how to use the key up event. We learned how to use a conditional statement where we have this or this condition. We can now determine the key property. So I'm going to make a comment with that. So what else? Okay, so that's pretty much, oh yeah, also the JavaScript command for reloading the page, which is location.reload. Okay, so in the next lesson we will make more of these inputs with the class of color and give them unique names so that we can take each of the individual colors and dynamically change the gradients of the class of gradient. Okay, so before we go any further, let's move this div with the class of inputs wrapper down so that it is perfectly even with this class of inputs gradient. And then let's move it to the right a little so that it's right up next to it. So for that we need to go to the CSS. Now the gradient class has a top of 50%, but then it's transformed up by minus 50% of its height, which is 60%. So 50% minus half of 60% equals 20%. So let's change the top value of the inputs wrapper to 20% and then save it and reload the page. Okay, next what I want to do is change the height of this div so that it's even at the bottom too. So I'm going to go to back to the CSS and change its height to 60% and save that. Reload the page. Okay, so now we don't have that ugly scroll bar right here. Okay, so if I remember right, this div with the class of gradient that is centered right in the middle of the page has a width of 60%. That means there should be 20% on this side and 20% on this side. But this div with the class of inputs wrapper is 18% wide, and its position to the left is 0%. So let's position it to the left at 2% to be able to shift it a little bit to the right. So let's go back to the CSS, and all we have to do is 2%, save it. Again, we reload the page, and there we go.